The Plucky Squire is out now, and it's a fantastic game to play. The way developer All Possible Futures has utilized both 2D and 3D spaces to create a wall-breaking adventure is wonderful, and at times pretty mind-blowing. And while it's all playable on the Steam Deck, there are some things to make note of. So in this video, we're going to go through how the Plucky Squire runs on the Steam Deck, our recommended settings, and our fix for a huge RAM spike that happens later on in the game. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit that notification bell to be notified as soon as our next video is uploaded. The game is also recorded on the deck directly. The game is also recorded on the Steam Deck directly, so your experience may be slightly better than what you're going to see in this video. The Plucky Squire is really a phenomenal game, and I highly recommend checking it out regardless of whether you play it on the Steam Deck or on a desktop PC. But there are a couple of areas where it can improve on the Steam Deck directly. Because this is a 2D and 3D game, there are moments where it runs extremely well, usually in the 2D areas, and some that drop heavily, taking place in the 3D areas. The default settings do work for some time, but you will start to see some issues once you start hitting the 3D areas. And while you can stay stable 30 frames per second for some time, battery drain will spike and it will drop later on in the game. So there are some changes we need to make, and there's going to be some compromises. But with that, we can create 3 different groups of settings that give a very stable experience. Regardless of these settings though, there are a couple of points in the game, usually after chapter 6, where the RAM will spike, causing an insane slowdown going down to 0 to 1 frames per second. There really isn't a discernible reason why, and the only way I found how to get past this is by setting texture quality to high, which sees the game stutter for a moment at these points instead of slowing to a crawl permanently. This does make some objects in the 3D world blurry, like playing cards that are right in front of you, and can take out the immersion in some ways. But it means we can play the game without the intense slowdowns, so I would take it. I also found that Proton Experimental may have helped a bit as well, but this could be a coincidence and may work with Stable or Proton GE. However, Cryo Utilities and the 4GB UMA buffer did not fix the issue. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty smooth sailing moving forward. Choosing my favorite way to play was hard, and it came down to the minor details that made me choose the quality settings over the frame rate ones. The world of the Plucky Squire is really beautiful, and being able to see everything in all of its glory is well worth the sacrifices we will need for frame rate. So we can keep every setting at epic except for textures and effects, which leaves us with a beautiful image and a mostly stable 30 frames per second. There are some parts in later chapters that may quickly dip down to 28, but this doesn't happen for long and you can't really feel it unless you're actively watching the numbers. The battery drain will also fluctuate a bit, going from as low as 10 watts in 2D areas to highs of 21 watts in the 3D areas. Because of this, we do need to keep the TDP limit unlocked so we can account for those high battery spikes. But it does stay on the lower end of the battery drain for the most part, so you're going to get more battery life than you expect. The frame rate settings were a close second for the recommended slot, and I still loved playing this way. With lowered quality settings, most of them to medium, and a resolution scale set to 85%, we can get a solid 45 frames per second throughout most of the game. There will be little hitches here and there, but these are far and few, and 45 will hold 99% of the time. It doesn't look as great as the quality settings do, nor does it have the best battery life, but it feels significantly smoother, and it's pretty amazing. I did try to get the game to hit 60 frames per second, and even with all the settings on the lowest and resolution scale at 10%, it still could not hit a solid 60 in the 3D areas. Luckily, 2D areas were never the issue, and even at some of the settings that I just went over, you could hit 60. But the 3D areas are going to cause trouble and you're just going to dip right back down. With how often you go in and out of those 2D and 3D areas, you're going to want stability over everything else. And finally, I wanted to create settings that catered to the lowest battery drain possible without the game looking awful. I mulled over this one a bit and decided to create an individual build, even though the recommended one does stick to the lower side of the battery drain more than higher. With some lowered settings past that, and 30 frames per second, we can stick below a TDP limit of 9. This is great for those who really need to maximize battery life, but if you're going to be near an outlet, do yourself a favor and let go of the battery drain, play at the highest quality you possibly can, or go for the frame rate. It's going to really elevate the experience. And it does support controllers and cloud saves. There are no HDR settings, and text size is a great size, so it's very well catered to the smaller screen. I loved playing through the game on the Steam Deck, even if I had to make compromises. It's an incredible experience, one that is very unique and uses 2D and 3D in ingenious ways to solve puzzles. and is definitely worth your time regardless of how you're going to play it. So, even though there are some compromises, I highly recommend checking the game out. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit that notification bell to be notified as soon as our next video is uploaded. And a huge thank you to all our patrons. You guys are awesome, and we appreciate you. See you next time.